to me, it maybe I'll do a dropper, like a dry dropper or a hopper dropper, but and then as soon as I see a couple noses up, I am 100% all dry, because there's just nothing like that take and just catching those fish and, just outsmarting them a little bit. And, and there's definitely some secret little bugs, to use and whatnot. And it's fun to think outside the box or go old school and use a Turk's tarantula or use a renegade or.
That was Heather Hodson talking about why she loves fishing dry flies for Westslope Cutthroat on some of her Idaho and Montana streams. This is episode number 44 of the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show.
Welcome to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show, where you discover tips, tricks, and tools from the leading names in fly fishing today. We'll help you on your fly fishing journey with classic stories covering steelhead fishing, fly tying, and much more.
In today's episode, I interview Heather Hodson, the Northwest Fly Girl and the person behind United Women on the Fly. We talk about her background and connection to some of the big names in fly fishing, cover how she catches fish in North Idaho and around the Spokane area, and a new movie she's working on for F3T. We talk about the drink that keeps her up on little sleep in a high-stress job, and why Texas is unique, and the go-to piece of gear that she uses for fish conservation. Don't miss this one as Heather shares a recent NBC Nightly News episode that shared a little bit of her story and the movement she has been building and changing many lives. Before I get into the episode today, I wanted to quickly thank our sponsors. Ascent Fly Fishing has customized fly box selections that they put together for your unique stream. These aren't just flies in a box, but they analyze the insect community, do a summary, and provide you with the exact patterns that are in your stream when you're ready to fish. Just go to ascentflyfishing.com and use the coupon code WETFLYSWING to grab 10% off your next order. We are also brought to you by the original tie right, which holds flies and hooks securely so you can tie your fly on with little effort. The tie right senior holds hook sizes 2 through 14, and the junior holds hook sizes 14 through 24. Tie right can help you tie clinch knots and modified clinch knots and many other knots to suit your needs. Head over to tieright.com and get started today. That's ty-rite.com. So, without further ado, here's Heather Hodson from United Women on the Fly. How's it going, Heather?
It's going well. How are you?
Good. Yeah, it's really great to have you on here. I've got some questions to dig into about, we want to talk a little bit about United Women on the Fly and some of the stuff you're doing. I kind of was just doing a little bit of searching online, and, your face pops up a lot with a huge smile and lots of big fish. So it's pretty cool. But I was hoping to maybe you can start us off just talking a little bit about how you got into fly fishing, and I guess the Northwest Fly Girl is kind of your handle on Instagram. Maybe you can talk about how that all started, and then we can get into some of the other stuff.
Sure. Let's see. I started fly fishing about 10 years ago, and really didn't get super into it until probably 3 or 4 years after I started, maybe 3 years. And like I would say most females, we start fishing due to some male figure in our life. And at that time, I was dating a guy, and we both decided that we were going to learn to fly fish together, and we were horrible. And it took me an entire year to catch my first fish on the fly. And so kind of once I finally caught this little tiny, probably 3-inch wild cutthroat, I was hooked, literally, and just kind of immersed myself and try to find some local shops with some education and just trying to learn and become a better angler. And then, so that was so I've been pretty into it for about 6-7 years, and I'm pretty addicted. So at least 100 plus days a year, do a bunch of teaching, bunch of, getting just women out and just getting after it. I used kind of the whole Northwest Fly Girl was, I fished a lot of my local home waters. I live in Spokane, Washington, so just the Pacific Northwest. And probably the last 3 or 4 years, I've really been traveling really across the world and just trying to fish. So I'm still a Northwest girl, but I love to fish everywhere.
Cool. Yeah, we can, I've got some questions a little bit later on about kind of your day job stuff, and all that, because I think it probably, I know some people that are in the same line of work, and I know you, occasionally, or you get some good days off. I guess that probably helps. But before we dig into a little bit of that, maybe you can just go into a little bit on United Women on the Fly and what that's all about, and, maybe how people can get connected with that.
So United Women on the Fly. So about 5 years ago, I started a women's group called Spokane Women on the Fly. And since then, now we're about 60 to 70 plus very strong, very active women. And within that, I actually joined Trout Unlimited, and our chapter became a part of TU. Well, because of the success of Spokane Women on the Fly, there were a lot of other kind of lead women who have been doing a bunch of mentoring, and they wanted to start something similar to Spokane Women on the Fly. They liked kind of the outline. They liked what they were, how we worked and what they saw. And so that's kind of how United Women on the Fly became created. So basically, it's just a global community of mostly women, but of really all anglers. And basically what I foresee it to be is I want it to be a central hub of information. Whereas if it's events or photos or where women can connect with other women all over the world and just kind of get to know each other and maybe couch surf or go and fish with people, ask, specific fishing questions or just share the love, lots of education, back to the basic stuff, all of that. So it's more of just this central hub for anglers to connect. And it's been pretty interesting. Yeah. We were on NBC Nightly News. I don't know if you saw that, but it was about a month ago. And since then, it's crazy how much we have a closed Facebook group, and there's like almost probably 1,600 women in it. Wow. And within the last 28 days, I just got an insight. There was over 16,000 comments in just the closed group. Yeah. Cool. So it's really cool to see just these women. It's fun, it's safe, it's non-intimidating. And the cool thing too is, these women can relate to other women. So when I'm posting photos I'm trying not to be, age discriminative or, so what race or whatever it is. And I think each woman can relate to a specific person that is posted on social media. And so they feel comfortable and they feel like they belong to this really cool community. And that's what it's about. And it's been really, and it's fun now because there's women that are posting in the closed group that are actually meeting up. They've never met each other. They're fishing and just making these friends. So it's been pretty cool to see and just watch the growth behind it and just see what's happening. So yeah, that's what I was thinking when you said safe. It seems like I've heard some stories. I guess I haven't seen as many of them, but I had April Vokian, and she was talking about some stories, and she interviewed, did the women, the Orvis 50/50. Yeah, I heard some of that interview, and you hear these crazy stories, about what goes on. And I've actually, on the other end, talked to some people, some episodes, I guess, that are going to be posting where they kind of feel a little bit different about it. So, I mean, you have these, and of course, there's the Orvis commercial where that was that. I know, right? All that crazy stuff. Unbelievable to even think that exists, exactly. But it does. Yeah, it does. Yeah. But no, that's cool. The safe thing is what it really is cool because it gives people, women especially in this situation, a chance to just kind of be open and learn and not have to worry about some of that stuff. So no, I think it's awesome. Yeah, no cyberbullying. I mean, one of our rules is no bashing. So whether it's any sex bashing, whether it's women to women or male against men, there's no company bashing. There's no, because it's all about just supporting everybody, and we don't want to be negative, and so that's kind of with the closed group. And there's very little drama, surprisingly, with 1,600 women. But I have a really good team. Now we're getting so big that I have women that are helping me with, just admin the group because I can't obviously, it would suck my, it'd take me 24 hours a day to read everything and try to keep up with it all. So. Yeah, that's crazy. Well, I want to dig a little bit more into that, some of that. But before we do, maybe we can talk a little bit about, I want to talk a little bit about kind of where you fish up in Idaho and kind of your home area, and talk a little bit about dry fly fishing. So can you talk a little bit about the waters, maybe the type of fishing you do and type of rivers and
talk about a little bit how you catch fish on, with dry flies especially?
Sure. So within Spokane, there's probably, within really a 4-hour radius, truly Missoula is 3 hours from Spokane. So we have a pretty awesome location as far as fishing. So it could be, Eastern Washington, North Idaho, as well as even into Montana. Some of the, your famous rivers like the Blackfoot or the Bitterroot, those are only 3.5 hours away. So there's definitely that. North Idaho is pretty special in the fact that there are all wild Westslope Cutthroat, and cutties, as most people know, love dry flies.
Yep.
And they're so much fun, and they like big dry flies. As I've traveled around the world fishing, and especially in a lot of these tailwaters, you're fishing with a size 24 midge that you can barely see. And I think the beautiful thing about where I'm at is that yes, I do have to go down to 6X tippet, 16-foot leader with a size 22, PMD, but that's relatively rare. So it's bigger bugs. We have a great stonefly hatch. So I'm sure a lot of people have heard, about the salmonfly hatch, and it's through Montana and everything. Well, in Spokane, our bugs are early. So we have a phenomenal squala hatch, like bomb squala hatch. On some of the rivers, you can float on, in February or March, and you could just throw a green, size 12 or size 10 green chubby and catch 50 fish to boat. Wow. In March. And you're freezing, granted, but it's and all on big squalas. And then the salmon flies come in, March browns too, of course, gray drakes. And then the salmon flies come in kind of May-ish, on the Yakima. So they're relatively early, and then they just all head east. And so we have a pretty decent salmonfly hatch in May. And then you go into, your golden stones, your yellow sallies, and then everything else. So our dry fly it's continual.
How long does the salmonfly hatch last typically?
On average, maybe 2 weeks.
Okay. Yeah.
So, just like normal, if you know that the salmon flies are in, you look at the river, and the problem is that in May, it's spring, so you could have a lot of chance for the rivers to be blown out because the weather's changing. So if you get an open window and an opportunity, you call in sick and you go and fish the rivers, So because you may not get that chance to actually fish for the salmon flies, just because of the snow melt and everything. And North Idaho, and Montana as well, we were 140% of snowpack level this year. And so, we still have water, which is pretty phenomenal. Yeah. So, unlike other years in the past, it's been, some of the rivers will become in shape faster. And then, so we'll fish those. And then by really the middle of June, it's almost too shallow and just not safe to fish for to ethically, mindfully fish. It's probably not the best idea.
Gotcha. And are you fishing a lot of the time out of boats? Or
in the spring, we'll fish out of boats just because the water is so high. And I'm definitely cautious. I'm only 5'1", so I have to be careful about high water. I'm strong, but like anybody, sometimes we think we're more powerful and better waders than we actually truly are. Yeah. So out of the boat in the spring, and then pretty much until May and still in the boat, but then June, it's all walk and wade. And that's what I love about these rivers is you can stalk these fish and walk up onto them, and you get exercise, and it's absolutely beautiful. And, it's accessible to people that are just in the car that maybe they're not as athletic. And then there's other places that you can hike in, 8 miles where roadless stretches that you're never going to see anybody. Cool. Obviously the fishing's a lot better in the roadless sections, but the fish they'll still take a fly even in the sections that are fished pretty often.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's I totally forget about that when I think of Idaho, and I just forget you're so close to all the Montana streams as well. You've got plus you have steelhead that's kind of right there. That's always been the thing with Montana. The thing we always joked about a little bit. It's like, well, you can't really move to Montana because there's no steelhead there. But you do have you've done some steelhead fishing too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like the Grand Ron's only nice. 3 hours to get to Bogans, which I'm sure most people know of. It's 3 hours. And then for me to get to the snake, which I absolutely love the snake. It's 2 hours. So, and the Clearwater is about 2 hours. But for me personally, I know that the fish are bigger. But the river's more slippery and it's just harder to wade fish. And so I prefer personally the snake.
Oh, gotcha.
So just for that reason.
And is that why you say you love the snake so much? Just it's easier to fish, or are there other things?
I love, you barely see any anglers. I love that the jet boats come up, because as soon as a jet boat comes up, literally 5 minutes, somebody's going to hook up. It's like they razz the fish, and there's some secret little spots, and it can be a little gnarly to wade, but the fish are fun. Usually when we go out, anytime you're on with a two-handed rod, it's like a blessing, and you do a dance if you catch a fish. And so I would say on average, we probably catch at least a fish in 2 days, and right. So it's pretty fun. It's pretty productive. And, I'm decent at casting. I'm not by no means an expert, but I'm not a competitive distance caster by, and so I can cast, but definitely people can cast way further than me, and I still am in the game. So I feel like it's doable for even newbies or, intermediate anglers. It's still fishable. So.
Oh, that's cool. I was just actually talking to an old friend of the family, and he never got into spey casting. And I was kind of asking him like, why? So what happened today? Why did you never get into it? And he just made that point that, well, a lot of times you don't have to cast very far. For a lot of these fish, including steelhead and all the species. And I think there are lots of places where a spey cast is very helpful. But yeah, I think there's still some people out there that love the single-handed rod. And I was, for even trout spey, right? I mean, you've got this big movement now. Is that something that you've gotten into or thinking about?
Yeah, on the Spokane River, we have wild red bands. And it's a bummer because the fish per mile, it's like 342 fish per mile. So it's pretty minimal. However, they love flies. They just eat them up, and they're big fish and they fight really hard. And so swinging soft tackles for them is a blast, like with a little micro spey, and just little caddis, October caddis, or just caddis pupas. And it's so fun. And you could even swing a woolly bugger. You could even swing a Pat's rubber leg for, that. And those fish just absolutely go bonkers over it. So and I don't know, there's something about a two-handed cast. I don't know, you just feel, and it's so cliche, but I just feel like I'm one with my rod and on the water. I know it sounds totally cheesy, but people who do that, I would assume they feel the same way. So, but on the Spokane, you can fish for dries, like purple chubby. It's fun because these fish, they even like big bugs. You can fish, smaller caddis and whatnot in the evenings, but purple chubbies, like size 12, they'll eat them up, and it's more, Spokane's definitely more of a subsurface game. So we'll do a lot of like purple chubbies, and then I like a longer leader. I tend to go pretty deep with like a pretty heavy nymph if that's what I want to do. And it's a little harder to cast, but you're going to be in the game a lot faster. So, and then with North Idaho, it's all, I honestly couldn't tell you the last time I nymphed in North Idaho.
Oh, really?
Yeah. To me, maybe I'll do a dropper, like a dry dropper or a hopper dropper, but, and then as soon as I see a couple noses up, I am 100% all dry.
Cool.
Cause there's just nothing like that take and just catching those fish and, just outsmarting them a little bit. And, and there's definitely some secret little bugs. Sure. And, to use and whatnot. And it's fun to think outside the box or go old school and use a Turk's tarantula or use a renegade or, stuff that has worked forever, but people get so caught up in these brand new flies, that they forget about the old ones, and the old ones work really good.
That's right. And these these are Westslope cutties you're talking about here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It's all Westslope. Yeah. All Westslope cutties.
Nice.
So and there's occasionally some rainbows, but for the most, I've actually never caught a rainbow in any of the North Idaho rivers, but I know that they do. I mean, people, they're out there, but for the most part, it's all Westslope Cutthroat.
Nice.
Yeah.
So if somebody was going to be heading out in that area somewhere, kind of North Idaho, and so like, what size of streams are you fishing? Like, what would be the smallest and versus the biggest? Wetted width size?
Pretty, like distance wise across, probably 60 to 90 feet. I mean, they're big.
Oh, so those are big streams, yeah.
Yeah, they're not small. I mean, there are smaller, areas, but they're bigger for sure. I mean, sometimes I can't cast across them,
sure. So these aren't but spring, little tiny, these aren't.
No. All freestone, no dammed. Spokane is dammed, but the Spokane, it's 40,000 CFS in the winter. So it's ginormous. But most of ours are all, like North Idaho, are all freestone.
Gotcha.
You have some smaller tributaries, but it's definitely all bouldery and just awesome, beautiful. Cool. Your classic, cut, or just your classic trout streams that you see. So it's So
if somebody was
if anybody wants to come, and they can contact me, and I could probably help you out.
Oh, cool. I was just going to say that was my next question. Like if somebody was kind of going that way, heading over there, if they were kind of just wanted to throw in the rod and try to find some fish.
I could definitely help somebody out for sure. And I do the women's program at Silverbow Fly Shop. So it's the local fly shop here in Spokane. And those guys are really phenomenal too. And they're going to help anybody out also,
Gotcha.
and just, keeping it local. And I always have people, it's so funny. I just actually wrote a blog post about this, that I'll have certain people say, "Oh, that looks like such and such river," and it's like, dude, if I didn't mark my location, I probably don't want it to be said. If cool, just leave it. Some things are still nice to, kind of to work. It seems like in our world, we're so into this instant gratification that people don't put time on the water.
Yep.
And it's really frustrating because I have several bubba holes that have taken me years to find and to really hone in on. And but with that being said, if people contact me, I always say that I don't kiss and tell, but I'm more than happy to help put people in the right direction for sure. And with bugs and just, the right tackle and the right size tippet and all that stuff.
Exactly.
So they can,
What would be, if you want to run that down just a little bit, kind of the rod, kind of line and leader setup with a dry fly setup, would you be using?
So 3 to 5 weight rods. I use a 3-weight glass. I prefer I can get some distance on it, but I love, a smaller rod, and you can definitely get away with a smaller rod. On average, like these cutthroat are probably 10 to 14 inches. That's probably your normal. And most people that have fished for cutthroat know, especially in this area, if you caught a 16 or an 18 incher, you're doing quite well, so that's a big fish. And so a 3 to 5 weight rod, just floating, weight forward floating lines. It depends on the time of year. I'll usually start with like a 7.5 foot 3X leader, and then just add 4X tippet to it if I need to. And here's a little tip, and you probably already know this, but if you take your fly size and you divide it by 3, that's on average what size tippet you should use. And not everybody knows that,
Yep.
And so it's a really good tip, especially for new people. And I tend to only use 3 to 5X tippet. I don't get into 6X or 7X typically when I'm fishing North Idaho. So if the number is, I just kind of round up or down, whatever. So a 3 or 4X leader, and then occasionally you'll have to use 5X tippet. But if you're throwing a size 8, you want to use obviously 4X tippet. 7.5 to 10 feet, 12 feet leaders, depending on how snobby they are. And, flies. So, they like, PMDs, BWOs, all of the big stones.
If you had to pick, a few flies to use for a day, could you do that?
Yeah, so the Lawson stone. So Mike Lawson has this all natural brown stone. Oh my God, that is like candy. It is such a good fly. The Tom Larimer's Yellow Sally. So that bug will catch mega fish.
Really? Tom Larimer, I didn't even realize he
He's
some
a
trout fishing.
solitude. Yeah,
this is sweet.
Oh yeah, Tom is. He has a bunch of
I had him
buds.
I had him on episode 11. So our seasons, basically season 1 was like all steelhead fishing for the first 30 episodes, and now we're into season 2, which is all trout fishing.
Cool.
So I'm trying to kind of keep things separate. But Tom had probably one of the best episodes on steelhead because he broke out his his like 5 tips for catching summer steelhead in the daytime.
Nice.
And it was classic.
I'm gonna have to listen to that.
Yeah, you gotta check it out. It's
he's so analytical. It's so he's so nerdy.
It was totally like it was like fly. It was steelhead like 3.0. It was like upper division stuff. It was pretty funny.
But once you are into that point, you listen to it and you're like, oh my gosh, it just clicks. So
exactly.
And then the Brook Sprout. So that's like a size 20 to 24, and that is an amazing fly. So I just told you my 3 secret flies.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
And you'll see on my feed too, a lot of my pictures have those bugs in it. So you'll know that I'm not lying.
Okay, cool. Good deal. Nice. Yeah. I was just trying to look up the episode. I wanted to make sure I know where this is going to be on. So I think this is going to be episode. I don't have it right in front of me, but yeah, I'll leave links to everything we're talking about here from some of these bugs. And I
can email them to you too.
Okay.
I can send you all that information. That's easy.
And yeah, some of this information, I know I like to provide some videos and things for people to check out when they can.
Cool.
Where that works. So, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So, yeah, I want to keep getting into some of this on the fishing, but I wanted to ask you about the 19-day road trip with Jen Ripple that was recently. I remember hearing about, I think from Jen somewhere where she was kind of saying out there on social that it was going, and I just didn't hear anything about it. Can you talk about what that was all about and what that felt like?
Yeah, Jen and I have known each other socially, like via social media, since the magazine started. I actually wrote an article, I think in our very first episode, or her very first magazine that was all digital at that time, about Spokane women on the fly. And so we finally officially met in January at the Denver Fly Fishing Show. And then I was also at the New Jersey show as well, working a booth over there. And so we kind of had this crazy idea. She was like, hey, I want to do a road trip. I said, well, I'm always up for road trips. And that's kind of how it started. And it just kind of expanded and really snowballed. At first we were thinking we were going to, I was going to run at the Jackson Half Marathon in Wyoming. And so she was going to fly in, and then we were going to drive down to the women's tarpon tournament. That's a long ways to go from Wyoming all the way to Florida. Jeez. So then we were like, okay, well, maybe we'll go her home water to my home water. And so that's kind of what we decided to do. So I flew into Nashville in the middle part of June. And then we basically went from Nashville. We took a detour up to Wisconsin to go hang out with one of our, with Jerry Meyer, who owns, she owns the Driftless Fly Shop in Viroqua, which I had never, so trout fishing, you should definitely interview somebody from the Viroqua, the Driftless area, in the Midwest. It is, and it's very tiny streams, but it's all trout. It's a lot of dries. It's technical casting. It was really fun. And then we basically decided that we wanted to make this a huge, just get as many people involved in the community as we can. So we did periodic women's evenings at different fly shops throughout. So we did Tennessee, we did Wisconsin, we did Colorado, and 2 in Montana. And just basically road tripped, and we met up with women. We picked up different ladies who joined us on the road.
Cool.
We tried to make it a fish bum budget, so just to show that there's good humans in the world, and that you can couch surf, and we did that. And we fished different areas for different species. We did fish the Utah Cutthroat Slam. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
I've heard of
that might be another great thing for you to interview on also. So there's 4 different.
Yeah. That's right. This is where you could, the Cutt Slam. I have heard about that. Yeah. Where you get the 4 different species. 4 different
species. And what's really interesting is the species, they're based on the drainage that they came from. So it's, you really couldn't tell if you've caught a Colorado cutthroat anywhere but the specific river and the original drainage it came from, it doesn't count. So it's really interesting. And so, and you'll quit. I won't say if we finished it, but I'll just say that we had a really good time. So if we completed it or not, so that's to be continued.
Nice.
Yeah. And then we did that and then went to, was it Colorado? No, Colorado, and then Montana, then Idaho. And then we basically ended our entire trip in Craig, Montana. And this was the second year that I hosted a United Women on the Fly event. And last year I think I brought like 35 people to Craig, and anybody that's ever fished or has been to Craig knows that it's a very small town. I think the population's 35. And so we basically, created the population. Well, this year we doubled it. We had 67 people there. Nice. Wow. So there's definitely announcements at the bar thanking us for bringing so many women to Craig, Montana. That's right. Yeah. And that's where NBC flew in and did everying. So
cool. How was that? How was that with NBC, that whole process?
It was awesome. It was pretty stressful to be honest. They contacted me for maybe you don't know this, but there was an article written in the New York Times, and this was probably, I don't know, January or 10 months ago or whatever. Well, it kind of struck a lot of interest. And so NBC wanted to continue that interest. And so they found me somehow, I think on social media.
Was this article something you wrote or what was it?
No. It was written about women in fly fishing, and when it comes in from the New York Times,
Gotcha.
That it gets some attention,
sure.
And so NBC, I think, they wanted to kind of jump on that wagon as well. It's like, wow, okay, so let's see what all this hype is about women in fly fishing. And so the executive producer had done some interviews, and then apparently she had, heard my name. And so she called me, and I didn't even really know that they were going to be coming to Montana until pretty much the beginning of our road trip. So I was just making sure I was setting up, places for them to stay and gear boats. And it was a lot of work, but totally worth it. And I think it was cut short. It obviously is the NBC Nightly News has to tell the news. And so I'd like to get some of the NBC affiliates, I'd like to get them all of the coverage. And so that way maybe they can run different stories, throughout the United States. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now.
Nice.
Yeah, it was fun. It was awesome.
That's cool. And all, so I found that it's going to be, this episode we're doing here will be wetflyswing.com/44.
44.
I'll have all the show notes there. And so what did you, from your road trip, what do you think is one thing you learned from that whole process? And, is there any takeaways from it?
I learned how to be a much better bow and arrow caster.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'm not with our bigger rivers. I'm definitely, used to having a little more room to cast. So I definitely became a better caster and overall better angler, just learning different techniques. But I think, truly just seeing that there's so many wonderful humans in the world, truly.
Yeah.
It's just people were so excited about it. And and this isn't just women, a lot of guys were as well. And just the support that we got and the great, just comments and just, it was really fun. And people just wanted to be a part of it. I think that's what it's all about is people want to be a part of something good, and so it was, the fishing was okay. It wasn't amazing, but that didn't really matter. It was so much more than just the fish, and so just the relationships you build. And I actually like Jen more than I did when I started the road trip, which cool. Could have gone, either way.
That's right.
19 days in a Nissan truck,
Wow.
But yeah, she's amazing, and we had a great time, and it was really fun. So
yeah, cool. And what do you think is the thing you love most about the whole traveling? You said you do some traveling around the world. What is the thing that really kind of keeps you traveling? Because I know it's a lot of work doing all that as well. Let's take a quick break for a word from our sponsors. The original Tyrite is a long-standing accessory loved by fly fishermen for decades. It's an accessory you won't live without once you try it. No more drop flies or hooked fingers. If you haven't seen this tool yet, it's pretty simple. It looks like a pin, a little ballpoint pin with a retractable clip. that allows you to basically hook the bend of your fly, and so you don't have to worry about fumbling with the tiny little fly or hooking your finger. And you just kind of finish the knot like spinning spaghetti on a fork. Just quickly do your twists and, stick the tippet through, and you're good to go. All parts are manufactured and assembled in the USA with a 100% lifetime guarantee. And I like to use the example of the tiny little blue-winged olive in the wintertime. And that's always a good example because, your fingers are cold and sometimes it's hard to hold those little guys. But the Tyrite makes this easy. Using a size 18 BWO, you'd be using the Tyrite Junior, and it just makes it a snap. So just wanted to give a heads up for everyone. This is a great tool from a great company. I'm excited to have them on, and want to get you guys to head over to tyrite.com and check it out today. That's ty-rite.com. We are also brought to you by Ascent Fly Fishing. Do you struggle at times to tie the right fly on the end of your fly line? What if you had a biologist or entomologist with you next to you telling you exactly what was going on in the stream and what you need to put on? That's basically what Ascent Fly Fishing does with their custom fly box selections. And these guys aren't just a one-trick pony. They cover rivers all over the country, from Oregon over to Colorado, out to New York. They've got basically the entire country. And they're building on from what they've got. And I've got a great example because I have a box for one of my local streams, and it's super awesome and neatly organized. It even comes with a card that shows which rows each of the flies are. Breaks down dry flies on one side, nymphs on the other, and talks about different categories of basically the orders of flies, mayflies, caddis flies. It's just really organized, and a lot of flies are on there, which were ones that weren't in my box. So I'm excited to get on that. And but yeah, you can head over and pick up a local selection from your stream. They have a 100% money back guarantee as well if you're not satisfied for any reason. So I think it's time to cut the guesswork out of it. Head over to ascentflyfishing.com and use the coupon code WETFLYSWING to get 10% off your next order. That's ascentflyfishing.com, ASCENT flyfishing.com.
Yeah, I love exploring new things. I love learning new techniques. I love becoming a better angler. I want to personally be the best that I absolutely can be. And I think sometimes when if someone's closed mind about a specific fishery or a specific, technique of fishing, then you aren't as well-rounded and you don't become the best that you truly could be. And I want to do that, and I love, even if I think the hardest part for fishing is that people are afraid of failure, so maybe you go out and you explore a new river, but you don't catch a fish. That's okay. I mean, you have to be okay with that and know that you're not always going to catch these ginormous fish, and so I like just learning and just meeting new people and experiencing, eating local, drinking local, and fishing that local area. I just absolutely love that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Nice. So, maybe you can bring us back. I mentioned at the start just about your day job. So, I talked to a bunch of people out here or on this show, and it's really cool because there's just such a wide variety. There's people that are full-time, like the Tom Larimers who are just kind of full on. And then there's some that are just getting started. I mean, it's just like a little bit, and there's some people that have full-time jobs and this and that. So maybe you can talk a little bit about what your day job is and how you kind of transition, or how you're transitioning to this, or what are your plans? I mean, would you like to be kind of that full kind of fly fishing sort of?
Oh man, I don't know. You can't make money in fly fishing.
I know, that's what they say.
I have to. United Women Love Fly is truly a passion project for me. That's kind of what I always joke about. I have to work and make a living. And in 2006, I graduated from Washington State University with my bachelor's in nursing, and that's my real job is. I'm such an adrenaline junkie. And so even from the first day, from J1 semester, my junior semester, I was all about critical care. And that's where I've always been. And so I've worked trauma, surgical ICU. I've worked medical ICU, recently cardiac ICU, thoracic, all kinds of just crazy ICU stuff.
Wow.
And then I also, I actually worked all day today. So for the last 6.5 years, one of my jobs is in the cath lab. And so I basically, if anybody in Spokane has a heart attack, then they come to us, and so when I'm on call and I get called in the middle of the night, I know that somebody's on their deathbed. And so it's scary for sure. But as soon as you can put a stent in or you can save them, it's so rewarding. So so I've been doing that for the last 12 years.
What is that? I mean, can you even explain what that feels like? I mean, basically saving somebody's life. I mean, that's,
it's kind of surreal at times. We actually, I was in the ER. I got called I've been working a lot lately. So I have 2 different nursing jobs. And one of them, we got called in for what they called a level 1, meaning somebody's having a heart attack. And people were doing CPR on this patient, and the patient survived. And so we rushed them into the cath lab, and I remember looking at them and thinking, what a crazy life I live, like I have this complete alter, like it's Dr. Jekyll, or it's like whatever,
Right.
It's like this total different personality. My world is fishing, and then I'm here, and I was told that I'm a really good tarpon fisher by Gray, who's got over in the Florida Outdoor Experience, because I'm very calm. So when my adrenaline goes up, I put into like the mode, And so he was like, man, you're such a good tarpon fisher, because most guys would be freaking out because this tarpon's coming the wrong way and coming right next to the boat, but you're just chill, you're chill and you're precise in your casting. And so, saving that patient and then talking to them and, their family and just everything. It's amazing sometimes in the medical profession how you become hardened. And, it's science, right, and it's a part of the job. And then you have certain instances where it's not. And it's like, oh my gosh, like this is really emotional. And so it's a weird, it's weird,
I mean, I don't know how many people out there, I mean, we're getting kind of deep into some stuff here, but I mean, I was driving home from work, a couple weeks ago, and I mean, there was a guy that just got hit on a motorcycle, and he was laying, flat on the ground, obviously dead. They had a blanket over his head and stuff.
Yeah.
And, I mean, just driving by, the feeling, you know what I mean? Like the feeling, you're like, holy cow, that's like, I mean, you can't even explain like that. And then, that's the thing I always wondered, like, how do you deal with that on a daily basis? But I think that's what it is. You just kind of,
you become hardened, unfortunately. Exactly. You do. And, and I mean, in most medical professions, especially over 10 years, you definitely, and when you're in critical care and you're with, you see a lot of death, it's definitely, I think the one thing though, that the benefit to it is that it shows, and most professionals in this field live their life, so meaning, we don't wait until we're retired to go and do what we want to do.
Right.
Like, I think that's a part of it too, for me is, I just saw, somebody that's 35 have a heart attack and is in the best shape ever, but due to family history, so you have to just live your life, and you can't, there's obviously a balance, and there's bills and everything too. But you can live your life by just going to North Idaho and fishing, I mean, truly. And people just get so caught up in the work world that there's so much more to life.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is what this profession and this job has taught me, is that you just have to do it.
That's a great,
you just never know.
It's a great take home message for sure. Yeah. You got to do it. So one last question on this. How do you function? What's your secrets and tips for functioning on no sleep or low sleep?
Spark, this Advocare, like B vitamin drink with a bunch of it. So amino acids.
Okay.
I don't know. I just do it. I drink Spark, and I roll with it. I think I'm
Yep.
high on life, so life is good.
Gotcha.
So, yeah. And I am tired. So some days, not very many, but I will just kind of chill out on the couch and just watch mindless
Sure.
reality shows. Like I can't watch ER or Grey's Anatomy because they're all so wrong. Like you don't shock somebody in a flat line, you know? And so I I start thinking about it too much. And so I watch reality shows. That's my like chilling out time.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I had a few more questions here I want to dig into. And, you know, I guess one of them, just thinking back to like dry fly fishing and things, do you have any, maybe you can talk a little bit about casting. We've talked a little bit about that, but some tips as far as dry flies, just general tips. And do you have, you know, with casting anything for somebody who is maybe, you know, not the greatest caster and wants to get better at it?
Yes, absolutely. For sure, the reach mend or the cast mend, if you can mend in the air, you know, because a lot of times you'll see a fish rising. So you want to cast to those fish at least, you know, 2 or 3 feet in the same feeding lane, and hopefully let it just flow naturally right by them. So learning to cast or to mend in the air is huge. And that takes a lot of practice. And I'm sure, you know, there's a ton of videos out there on how to do that. But it's more, you know, just practicing out in the park, too, and just trying to get better. The other thing, too, is, you know, how we kind of talked about that, like your friend who never got into spay fishing because he said you don't really have to cast that far. Well, I think that's the same, you know, for most fishing in general, but especially even in North Idaho, and even if the river's 60 feet across, you know, I always tell my women when I'm teaching them 30 feet at max. You know, it's like, sure, I call it long castitis. You know, it's like, well, great, you can cast really far, but are you able to mend and get that drift and set the hook and actually land that fish if you're casting 60 feet? Yeah. So I think you're going to have so much more control if you start and you stay closer. The other thing too is I call it amphitheater casting. And even with spay fishing, I'll do this too. But I always recommend that you take at least 5 steps before you ever step in the water, ever. Because, you know, there are so many times that literally 3 to 5 feet in front of me, I'll hook into a fish. Yeah. And so I always say, you know, you as the angler, you are the stage, right? And so your first cast should be maybe 3 feet, and that's the pit, right? So you let it cast up, and then you let it kind of go down, and then pull 3 more feet of line out, and then so you're doing like 3, 6, 9, 12. So you're just basically amphitheater, you know. So it's the pit, then it's row 1 and row 2 and row 3, and you're just casting and you're just working that water. And this is obviously if you're blind dry fly fishing, just trying to work it in more of a grid pattern. I mean, you're a hunter, you're search and rescue, you know, you're looking for that fish, and 30 feet, and then just work your way up. Don't grow roots and just move on, you know. And the other thing, if you see some fish coming up feeding, you know, there's different feeding behaviors for them, so you'll know which fly to throw on. But trying to get it 2 to 3 feet in their feeding zone, then you're going to be more successful, you know? Right. So, but definitely that reach mend, you have to, like anglers have to learn that reach mend. Or the tuck cast. I don't know if you do that, but it's where you're going to stop more at like 11 o'clock or almost noon. And what happens is then your fly is going to just drop down. Yeah. And especially if it's for Euro nymphing also. So, but with dry flies, I'll use it as well, because sometimes you don't have to cast that far, but you want to get that perfect dead drift. And learning the feeding behavior. So maybe you've casted a dry fly and it's worked all of its water. And then at the very end, you know, we'll call it, you know, let it dangle or on the swing, your dry fly. I mean, it might be submerged, but a lot of those bugs, you know, if they're caddis pupa or emergers or even stoneflies, they will be in that kind of, you know, very close to the water column to the very top. And so a lot of times you're going to catch fish that way, even on dry flies. And so learning if you need to twitch the fly, or if if it's not a dead drift presentation, just seeing how the fish react and how they're feeding is imperative as well.
That is, I was just thinking as you're talking, just the observation piece is critical. And I interviewed Rick Hafley in episode 37, and he's a big entomologist and kind of one of the old timers. But yeah, he just made some great points of like, I loved one of them was that, it's okay, everybody's fired up to get to the river when you fish, so get out there and cast a few, cast for 30 minutes or an hour, but then take a break.
Totally.
If you're not catching anything, and step back and kind of just observe like what's going on, turn over some rocks, shake some brush, kind of all that stuff. So I think that's a good point, because it's a struggle. I get those questions a lot from people, like reading water, where do you start? Like, you have a huge river, and a lot of times fishing right in next to the bank is good, but where are those fish? And
right. Absolutely. Yeah. Observation. And the next day it could be totally different. The exact same water, the fish are going to want a different bug and a different presentation. And that's the beautiful thing about especially dry fly fishing, is just learning that and having that and being able to visualize that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So what is do you have a good resource that, you use, or like, how did you kind of got into it your first year, but then you started learning? What was it? How did you get to where you are now?
Mentors. It's all about mentors. And just people that are willing to share their information and give back. That's, and I read books, like I've read Rick's book, and I definitely I am a complete nerd, especially when it comes to bugs. Nice. And there's so many great websites out there, and just the internet and learning, but, still old school books, but mentors, people, I think anyone can be a mentor, even if let's say a clinch knot, but show someone else that, and then you're giving back and you're just developing and creating this really cool sport and really great community. And I'm just beyond fortunate to just, meet people and that are willing to, share their knowledge. And I think even if, I've been fishing for a while and I'm getting better for sure every day, but I think I'm never cocky, and I'm never think I know it all, and so people are more willing to give you information if you're, more willing to take it than trying to, some people will ask you a question and then you'll answer, and then they think your answer's wrong, or whatever. Right. And so just being open to all just different ways, and just, mentors, that's been the biggest thing for me.
Do you have a couple mentors that really stick out that kind of early, or, throughout your fishing time?
Yeah. There's a cardiac ICU nurse. So he is Curt. He basically took me under his wings, and he showed me my local home water in North Idaho. And he taught me the river. He taught me the runs. I mean, I still call certain runs Bookum Dano. It's this run. If anybody heard this, they'd be like, what in the world are you talking about? Apparently this guy, Dan, he came upon a snake and he ran. So they call it Bookum Dano, and so Curt taught me the river, and he taught me how to fish and how to mend and how to just do everything. So truly, I owe it to him. Cool. I mean, he's really what sparked this craziness in my world. And I'm dating a really amazing guy, and he's an amazing wealth of knowledge. And so I am picking his brain all the time, And so it's funny because when we first started dating, or before, I asked him, I said, would you ever date a girl that fishes? And he said, absolutely not. I would never date a girl that fishes. And I was like, well, I'll never date a guy that doesn't fish. And partly it was for him because he had been a guide before and blah, 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 but he didn't want to tie someone's flies on, and, he just wanted to go out and fish. And so he meets me, and then, totally when the roles are reversed and I'm taking him to these North Idaho rivers and showing him my water. Nice. And, driving and telling him to drink beer and eat pizza while I show him around. He's like, whoa, where did this come from? And so in return, he's definitely, and he's a really good spay caster. So cool. I've just learned a lot from him, and so, and most of these guys are men, and I definitely have some women mentors, Amy Hazel. Oh yeah. So Amy's she's one of my homies. I absolutely love her. And I've learned so much from her, and when she's taking me on the Deschutes and teaching me how to snake roll, it's like, wow, I got to pinch myself. You know what I mean? And, yeah, it's just all these, there's so many amazing people.
I talked to Amy recently, and she's going to come on as well.
Awesome.
I haven't had her on yet, but I've got a great story I'm going to tell her that everybody's going to have to wait for it, but she's going to love it. It's one that I ran into her a number of years ago, and it's pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, it has to do with spay fishing. So hopefully, I'll get her on and maybe John on eventually as well. But yeah,
I'm sure they both would be more than game. But
definitely.
Yeah, so it's all about finding your people or your tribe, and just taking in the knowledge. And I hope to be, I feel like I'm already a mentor, I try to give everything I've ever learned back to mostly the women that I'm fishing with, but I want to be that mentor. I want to give back. I think that this sport, it's the only way to do it. It's the only really way to keep the sport alive. And you just have to give back.
Yeah.
So
how do you think, somebody listening to this, how could they help, give back or help the movement? Because, you guys obviously with what you're doing with women and helping people get into it, this resource is amazing. I mean, what would you tell somebody that either wants to help that movement or just help, get more diversity in fly fishing?
Yeah, I'd say just connect with your local organizations. There's some fly shops for sure, just, the local stuff, but different clubs or Trout Unlimited chapters, or, just joining and talking to a local group and seeing if you can help and volunteer. And even if you're going to teach a kid how to cast for an hour, or whatever, and, or how to tie a San Juan worm or a woolly bugger, or putting trout, they do trout in the classroom or whatever. It's just, figuring out and finding organizations or a group, or, with social media, there's so many groups and clubs out there. And I don't really like the club, like with Spokane on the Fly, we're not a club, we're a community. But there's a lot of groups out there that you can find on social media that, and you'll find your people. Some of the different groups can be a little more cyber bullies than others. Yeah. So you have to definitely, see what kind of groups you like. But that's where I would start. When I did some research with United on the Fly, I have the front website. It's connect with women groups. And so we have a graphic that has the United States is set up into different regions, and you can click on a region and then you click on any state within that region and it'll show up if there's a women's group in there. And so it's all about just connecting. And when I was doing a lot of research on that, I found just on social media, over 75 women's groups.
Nice.
So they're all over, and there's stuff for men too. And a lot of the women's groups are not this, it's not I am woman, hear me roar. It's more of just, just allowing people to connect and get together. We have guys all the time in our, in all of our events and everything. And most of my mentors are men. So
That's
it's
right.
not, this is not a male bashing by any means.
No.
And I think that's the misconception sometimes with these women's groups and with this women outings, is that we all are feminists and we hate men. And that's not true at all. It's just, we love to socialize. Fishing with women is really fun.
Yeah, no, and it's not easy. I think of just with the podcast here, I went a number of, I think like 25 episodes or whatever it was without a single woman. It was basically all males. And my stepdad actually came up and called me out. He was like, do you know you haven't had a female on your podcast yet? And I hadn't even thought about it. You know what I mean? Because it was just, I just wasn't in that space or whatever. And so, so I made an effort to really, okay. And, and now I've made a bunch of great connections and,
cool.
Had April on, and hopefully Jen and some other people will be on to talk more about, and not just women. It's just about fly fishing, that's
absolutely.
that's the
line. And I think it's cool to hear, or I don't know if this, for me as a female, and especially having a decent following on social media, there's kind of a stigma that I'm one of those Insta girls, right? And I think what's good and bad about that is that it makes me prove myself to myself, but also to others that I'm truly a good angler and I'm trying to do good. And, so sometimes it's nice to hear women talk, technically. And I think that that's because a lot of I don't know, you have to prove yourself. And I hate that that's the fact, but it's the fact. And until you can really talk the talk and walk the walk, a lot of people are going to be like, oh yeah, those girls, and there's so many women out there that can talk the talk, that have been doing it for so many years, way before social media, and have been guides forever. And I look at the East Coast, like Rachel Finn and Kiki and, Lindsay. There's so many incredible women guides up, especially in New York area, Sam Decker and all this stuff. And they've been there, forever, and they can talk the talk, let me tell you, and so it's really cool to hear technical lectures or technical conversations with these women, I think personally.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
That's cool. So, we're getting close to wrapping this up, but I had a couple big questions I was hoping to throw by you and just to see, if you had a response. And one of them was just, I guess this is more of a life question, but is there anything that, you think back in your life that kind of maybe a turning point or something that influenced, where you are today?
Ooh, I moved to Texas in 2009. And to become a traveling nurse because I needed to just kind of step away and find myself. And so I think that was kind of my turning point. I started fly fishing in 2008, but I didn't officially really start until I moved back to Spokane in like 2010. So I think that year in Texas, I have a tattoo on my wrist that says "Live Life" with a star, and that star is actually for Texas. And so I think that was kind of the turning point for sure for me, just becoming just who I am.
So what is, I've actually never been to Texas. What makes it so unique over there? Is there anything that makes it different?
So awesome. Oh my gosh. Like the food and the music, whether you like country or not, like just the music. I lived in Temple, Texas, which was about 40 miles north of Austin. So I frequented Austin quite a bit. Just the culture, it's like Portland. It's just fun. It's weird, it's hot, but there's a lot of things to do. The people are so nice. And the peach cobbler, oh my God. And the barbecue, like the food's good. Wow. The beer's decent. There's actually pretty good trout fishing too on the Guadalupe. Which is just south of Texas. That might be kind of a fun podcast for you to. There's a huge trout. I think it's the Guadalupe Trout Unlimited, but there's a lot of, and there's actually the Texas women fly fishers too, a huge group. So there's some good fishing, and Texas is just awesome. It's a place that everybody should visit for sure. Now, I'm a Pacific Northwest girl, so I missed the mountains and I missed my trout and, and everything. So I moved back to Spokane, but it was that year that I lived there was pretty incredible.
That's awesome. Yeah. I love, I play Austin, and I mean, you hear all the stories, and actually I was at a recent kind of a local concert, and there were some bands from Austin that came up and played in Portland or outside of Portland. Yeah. And it was just awesome. I mean, they were like, I'm not a total like new country sort of thing, but I'm more like Merle Haggard, all the old school guys. And I mean, these guys were playing, they sounded, like their own stuff, but it was like throwback to the old school.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was just like made sense. They're from Austin. There's just cool stuff going on there.
Well, and there's actually a specific genre it's called Texas country. Oh, so really? It's like red dirt country, and it is different. It's not twangy. It's you should check it out.
Can you think of a band that would be in that?
Like Stoney LaRue, Roger Krager, Aaron Watson. There's all kinds of really good. Reckless Kelly. There's all kinds of really good. And it's funny because they're not like, they don't want to be mainstream country. They are Texas country, and it's totally different. Yeah. And just small little honky tonks. I think that was what was so cool. Fun is you can see these very popular bands in really small venues. And to me, that was, just a lot of fun. So,
yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I'm definitely going to music and music, microbrews and
totally
and fishing. I think that's part of the road trip you guys did. And are you going to do another one of those, you think? Or something? Yeah,
and we'd like to continue it every year for sure. Nice. So, and we'd like to maybe go international. We don't know. Totally. So there's a lot of, I really enjoyed fishing in Florida for tarpon. So I wouldn't mind, we've already kind of done the West, so it'd be fun to do an East Coast tour and also a Southern United States tour. And
Nice.
we've already had a bunch of women that are already urging us to come their way and, offering good places to stay and fish and eat and drink. So
That's cool.
I'm sure next year we'll definitely be doing another. And we filmed a movie.
Oh,
so
really?
the whole road trip, we somewhat filmed a movie. I mean, I was trying to film with my drone and my phone, and it was, I don't know how much
easy.
of this movie I'll be in it, but, and the fishing wasn't great. So it's hard when the fishing isn't phenomenal to film a fishing movie. So it could be interesting. So, we'll see if it actually gets picked up.
Cool. So when do you think, potentially this is?
Well, we're going to submit it for F3T.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah.
Awesome.
So, next year, perhaps. We'll see. We have a lot of really fun stuff.
Yeah.
Just being dorky and not just being girls, but kind of being girls, but just, I broke my Winston Air fly rod. That's $1,000 in a door. And, and it's like, well, okay, you got to persevere. And I ended up, fishing with it and catching fish, and so there's a lot of little things like that. So
yeah, God, the rods. My friend broke my spay rod on our last trip, and it was just stuff happens. It's like we had a lot of wind, and I think it kind of hit a chair or something and snapped. But
I know I'm flying to Alaska in a week for almost a month, and most of it's all all two-handed fishing, and so I'm bringing 3 spare rods.
There you go. What part of Alaska?
Bristol Bay. Oh, yeah. And then, do you know Kate Taylor? Have you spoken with her before?
No,
Okay. So her and her now husband, Justin, they just got married, but they own Frigate Travel. And so they will go from Alaska, like King Salmon area, all the way to, and then they have a home in Oregon over on the coast. I think near Gold Beach.
Yeah, I have actually. Yeah, I did talk to. I talked to. I can't remember. It was a while back, but they were really busy. But I think they'll be on as well.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, totally.
I met Kate. Well, just women there's few and far between women that are hardcore anglers, and so we all are friends. And so
what does hardcore anglers mean to you?
I mean, just that we'll fish all the time, regardless of weather. We're not fair weather fans. If we catch a fish, great. If not, that's okay. We're just kind of like the dudes,
Yep.
And there's not a lot of us, right? Like I would consider April 1, Hillary Hutchinson, like a lot of us girls, we've all met via social media, but we've all,
it's
tiny
it
is kind of a tiny world, and, but I'm bringing 6 ladies up with Kate, and we hosted a trip up there last year, and this year I'm hosting more women. And so we're going to go and fish. So, I'm bringing 3 spay rods just in case.
Nice. Okay. I got a couple of quick ones before I let you go. So do you have a top, piece of gear? It doesn't have to be fly fishing, but is there anything that sticks out that's like something maybe traveling that you don't leave without?
The Connect. So it's a dome for my GoPro. I'm pretty into the keep 'em wet movement. And, so this is a cool dome that you can either do fully submerged and or those 50-50 shots. And it's called the Connect. It's KNCT, I think. That would be a good one to link.
Oh.
And it's awesome. And it's super easy. It's
so
a trigger.
Is this something where you're putting a GoPro inside?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so that I do not leave home without, because I love my fish and I want to be good to the resource. So I'm trying to think outside the box of ways that I can actually film these fish, but still trying to be nice to them.
Exactly. Cool.
So, I love that, the dome's awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. I'll link to that at, like I said, at episode 44. And then one big one for you before I let you get going. As far as fly fishing in say 50 years, 75 years from now, is there anything that you would want to be remembered for? I mean, you've got a pretty big movement here. You're part of, what do you, or either you or the movement, what do you think?
I think just that the mentorship, I think just being thought of as a mentor or kind of selfless and wanting to always give back. And I would hope that in, 50 to 75 years that people are still doing that, that we're still trying to keep the sport alive and just sharing the knowledge.
Definitely. Are you seeing a change, kind of with what you're doing with all the women, as far as, whatever the numbers, percentages? Are you seeing more people? Is there a way that we can kind of look at that and kind of document it?
There's I think it's called Take Me Fishing. They do a survey. So when I did a presentation, 5 years ago about women in fly fishing, and the current stats were 29% of women fly fish. Currently, it's 31% of women that fly fish. And so they actually, and how they figure out those stats is they'll do a survey, or they'll look at license sales, and they can get demographics and all of that. And so I think that, I don't know if we'll ever get 50-50, but kind of Orbis has that initiative, but I think that we're definitely on the up and up. And I still think that we're at least 5 or so years before the peak. I think that there's a lot of people, there's so many people in the world, as far as population goes, and people don't even know that fly fishing exists. Totally. Or, on the East Coast, it's maybe a little less, friendly to females. On the West Coast, we're all hippies, and we're all make
free
love, not war.
Exactly.
And so it's definitely a different mindset, and so I foresee that that's definitely going to be changing in the next 5 to 10 years. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, well, I'll let you get out of here, but maybe in the next 6 to 12 months, anything else you have going on you want to kind of let us know about?
Well, I turn 40 next year,
Nice.
So I am not holding back.
Yep.
Going to New Zealand and Australia, and I'm actually hosting. There's a Girls Gone Fly Fishing group out of Australia, and they asked me to be the lead speaker and instructor for the weekend. And so I'm going to Tasmania next year.
Wow.
Yeah, and then we're going to Russia. I'm spending a ton of money next year just because
That's awesome.
I'm turning 40. I'm just doing it.
Yep.
So look for lots of international stuff and hopefully
Nice.
some really big fish. And I should know this, but there's a specific fish in Russia, in Kamchatka, that is, I believe it's out of the char family, and it's on the swing, and it's only specific to that area. Obviously the rainbows on mice are going to be awesome, but I'm really excited to catch some, different fish too.
Sure.
So you'll be seeing some different things happening. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'll look forward to that. And, I'll have to check back with you, when kind of you get into some of that stuff, and maybe I'll see how I go with the show. I'm not even sure where I'm going, but I know I am going to hopefully get a DIY season in where we talk about destination fishing and stuff like that. I love that. Yeah. So, and you're out of Portland area, right? Yep.
Yeah. So who knows? Maybe I'm actually going to be down. Joel with Royal Treatment's doing a big,
totally.
He's doing a fly fishing show or fair or something on October 14th. So I'll be down there doing I'll actually be speaking at it.
I'll stop by and see. I ran into Joel at the tying expo. So I've been meaning to connect with him again. So
he might be a good one to have on too.
He would be.
Because he's really knowledgeable about, I went and fished, a river in Oregon that anybody that's a trout fisherman probably knows about, with really large brown trout, which I won't say the name, but you probably already know.
Mm-hmm.
And so him, myself, and Eric, we went and fished Pyramid, and then we drove there. And he's a phenomenal trout angler. Like by the time I was still eating breakfast, and I'm hearing him whistle, and he's just catching mega fish, and he's a lot of fun. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, we got some more to talk about, but I'll let you get to it. I just wanted to check in with you and see, as far as where people can find you. Is there a good just send them to the United Women on the Fly?
Yeah, or Northwest Fly Girl, and they can connect with me. Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Cool. Awesome.
Well, Heather, thanks. I just wanted to thank you for coming on. I mentioned this on the show in the past, but I've got 2 young girls, 4 and 6 years old. And, I just want to thank you for what you're doing, because, I'm going to do my best to help them get into the outdoor stuff. But, you're doing this for a lot of other women. So I appreciate everything you're doing.
Awesome. Well, thank you. It was nice. It was a fun interview. Thank you.
Awesome. So I'll talk to you soon, and have fun traveling out there.
Awesome. We'll talk to you later.
All right. See ya.
Okay, bye-bye.
So there you go. If you want to find all the show notes with all the links we covered, go to wetflyswing.com/44. And please head on over to iTunes to click the subscribe button. This is the fastest way that I know of that can help the show reach more people out there and help some people catch more fish. Go to wetflyswing.com/subscribe to see the details and how to do it quickly. Thanks again for stopping by to check out the show today. I'm looking forward to catching up with you soon and hope to connect with you online or on the river.
Thanks for listening to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show. For notes and links from this episode, visit wetflyswing.com. And if you found this episode helpful, please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes.